fellow readers. Today I'm going to be talking about Perfect World. This is a josei series from Ai Aruga. I hope I said that name correctly. You got me a little stumped with that name. I hope I'm saying it correctly. Usually I'm pretty good, but I've never heard that one before, so I'm a little worried. I'm confused. So from the back, in search of perfection, a company get-together reunites 26-year-old Tsugumi with her high school crush Itsuki. In the years they've been apart, Itsuki has realized his dream of becoming an architect. But along the way, he's also suffered a spinal cord injury that's left him in a wheelchair. Seeing Itsuki again rekindles Tsugumi's feelings for him. It also forces her to confront her own hidden prejudices. Itsuki's disability seems like an intimidating obstacle at first, but soon, Tsugumi discovers that her world feels imperfect without him. So, I completed this whole series. It's a 12-volume series, fairly easy to get through, other than the emotional aspects of it, because this is a very serious and, I think, well done story about living and dealing with spinal cord injury, and not only just Itsuki's experience with his spinal cord injury, but there are other characters at play who are wheelchair bound and their different experiences being wheelchair bound and what they go through in daily life and how they're overlooked. It's also an interesting look at the way that different countries deal with people with disabilities, and especially looking at people in wheelchairs, because it is quite different. Looking at some of this stuff in Japan, because that's where this is based, it's quite different from how we deal with a lot of things in the US. There are certain building codes and everything that we have to take into account anytime we create a new building in the US. Not so much personal residences, that is more up to the individual, but professional businesses, which they touch on here since he's an architect, it's interesting to me that they don't necessarily have to take the wheelchair bound people in the country into account when they do these designs. And I find that interesting, because for us, we always have to take a look at accessibility and how are we including people who have different levels of ability, depending on whatever that is. And it's very often a thought. So seeing how things are perceived or done in another country was also quite eye-opening and insightful to me. In general, though, I loved this story. It's a sweet romance story between Itsuki and Tsugumi, and how they can overcome the way that the world sees them. And there's a lot of people in Tsugumi's life who do not want her to end up with Itsuki because they think it's too hard for her, or that she needs to be taken care of, so she needs an able-bodied person in order to do that. And even to some degree, Itsuki himself feels that way, like he feels unworthy of her and that he can't do enough for her, which is also very painful because he's who she loves. He fills her heart up and her life up. She doesn't want to be with someone just because they're able-bodied and can help support her, even though, yes, life with Itsuki is a little bit harder. It's also more fulfilling because she loves him, and that's the whole struggle that they have to work throughout the whole series. Can they stay together and be together? And not really how can they show the world, because they don't need to show the world, but at the same time, it's how can they present themselves fully and be seen as a full, regular, loving couple, the same as any other couple. And I love those. There are other couples and individuals that we meet throughout the series that all become an important interwoven part of their story, and really help Tsugumi and Itsuki come to terms with their feelings, come to terms with how they want relationships to progress, whether it's theirs as a romantic relationship or whether they shouldn't stay together. It's all part of this. And there's whole life stories going on. I was emotionally drawn to Segumi's story. Her father discovers that he has terminal cancer, and it's also her like working through that family dynamic. And he really is against her being in a relationship with Itsuki, especially since he sees how infirmed he's becoming and how much of a burden he feels that it is on his wife and family. He doesn't want that same thing for Segumi. So he sort of feels like she should get out now while she can, rather than being burdened by Itsuki and his demands. But, you know, there's a great power in love and how much you love people and how much you can do for people when you love them. So I think it's interesting. The whole conversation is interesting. It's well done, well developed. And again, this is an author who does the research, who talked to people with different spinal cord injury and different other physical medical conditions, and really presents it well throughout the whole series. And what I love too is that they do read as people, not as a disability, not as something is wrong with them, but as fully fleshed out people, and that whole emotional journey and how they are people and should be seen as equivalent people, and that maybe more care and understanding should be taken for helping them to live out their full lives instead of, you know, kind of dismissing them or thinking that they won't want to do things or can't do things. I love that series like this are being developed. It's the same with a lot of LGBTQ rights stories that are happening in Japan right now, because I think that they are trying to do kind of a grassroots movement to getting new ideas and thoughts through and passed to have a more fulfilling life. That would be my take on it. And we've still got a long way to go here in the US too, but at least there are certain things that we're already taking into account. And it's interesting too, like as someone that works in a historical building, how different that is, because there are certain things that we're allowed to have, but we're always trying also to find ways to be inclusive and accessible. And usually lots of money has to be involved when you have like a historical building and you're trying to like repurpose everything. But it is a whole other issue that, you know, you don't want to lose that past, but also you want to be able to incorporate and include everyone. So I don't know, hopefully they're moving toward like that kind of thing in Japan as well. And this was really eye-opening and insightful. And I think even if you haven't been involved with it, if you don't know that much even about your country's laws and rights for people with disabilities, this may help incite that research in you and also make you address any hidden prejudices that you might have about people who are different. And I really enjoyed that. And I think that the more that we have these conversations and read these types of stories, the more open we are to one another and the more able we are to learn and hopefully move forward more toward a perfect world, which even their perfect world isn't necessarily what people would see it as. Like the perfect world can be that we're living side by side and doing our best for one another. So this is very warm, very moving. I appreciate this story very much, and I would highly, highly recommend it to any reader. This is the type of story that is good to read. Like it just brings up good feelings, but also makes you think about other people and how we should get along. And so I really appreciated it, and I think read it. It's so good, and it's a lovely love story. And sometimes we also need a good love story to just remind us of good things. That's it for this video. Until next time.